Well, it's Sunday after Saturday, which of course was a day nobody wanted to have happen, and that was Johnny's funeral here in Sioux City. And I wanted to do this video in honor of Johnny because some people don't realize that the great display that was put up through Johnny's efforts is now no longer up. But when I came out in February, Johnny insisted that we come over here because he was just beginning the process to tie down that the museum would be willing to do a major 3-month exhibit leading up to and including Bolin Fest. And so we came down here, and I had never been here before. And we were so impressed with really, it's just a major league, big time museum. It's all about Sioux City and the area. So we went into the back room and saw where the museum had been storing the Prairie Prince t-shirt and a number of other major pieces of Tommy memorabilia that had been part of an exhibit like 8 or 9 years ago. And Johnny was letting the museum keep it in storage, which was not an incorrect decision. And so we came and saw all that, met with Matt, and this was going to be put together. But Johnny still needed to go through his entire collection on Court Street and pick out everything and get it organized so we could ship it over here, which is no small undertaking. And he was not in the best of shape, the best of health, as many people do. But he was going to do this, period. And in talking to Matt, you know, there was a little bit of concern, like, well, is Johnny going to be able to? Johnny did. He got it completely together and everything got brought down. And Matt did just a phenomenal job putting it all together. And anybody who came to the exhibit, that was the underpinnings of it. I had, at that point, started getting some super high resolution prints made that I wanted to present to Johnny, and also that, hey, we could actually, you know, make these available to people. So I had sent him a few pieces already, and he was just stunned about the quality and was really excited. So the whole point was, okay, can I maybe do get a few together for the museum here, for the exhibit? But we're about to take a look at all the ones that we did get done that are still up here at the museum. It's in a different location than where the main exhibit was. But these were all done because of how excited Johnny got about the first ones that I did. And Matt was like, yes, but since I couldn't get them here before June 1st, they would then be put at a different locale in the museum. So a lot of people who came to see the main exhibit didn't realize that in a different part of the museum, this was also there. Now these are going to be up indefinitely. They could come down at some point, but Matt was so excited about the quality of these. And then the whole idea was, let's make a museum quality. And I got him here, and Matt said, yep. So this is still up and will continue to be up. And it was all because of my coming here and getting so in touch with how important this was to Johnny and meeting Matt. And so I was like, let's figure out how to do this. And so I checked around to see if anybody would want to help with it financially. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to figure that out. So I paid for all this, and I paid to have it shipped in here. And it's donated basically to Johnny and or the museum or whatever. But for right now, this stuff will continue to be up. So the first piece here is what's considered to be perhaps one of the greatest amazing live performances ever of anybody. And I just talked to Bob Furbrash last night, and he took so many pictures of Tommy, and he was there, and he told me the backstory, that this was done, these 2 nights were done, because Chuck Morris had just started being his manager. And Barry wasn't actively his manager at this point. It was after the James Gang. He was about to be leaving the James Gang. But he came to Denver in early June, and they put this show together because they knew they could get it on the radio for 2 nights, do the recording, but that would be a Chuck not only owning it as field and doing that, but that would also be, he's his manager, and let's get something into the Denver media right now. And so that was the backstory. And of course, it was Bobby Berge, Russell Gazay, Stanley Sheldon, Jeff Cook, and Archie Bongos on the Brain Shelby from Sioux City, who were the backing band. Russell sings a couple songs, Archie sings a song or two, and Jeff, of course, singing on that album. And any Tommy fan probably knows about that. And of course, Bob also took that picture. So, and here's another photo that Bob took. And it was a gig he did. We're still trying to get the memory banks told. In theory, it was a couple shows they did with Alphonse Museum and Stanley and Ronnie Barron. And this was taken at that show. And again, Bob took that picture as well. And then, of course, everybody loves the teaser album. So I was able to buy a near mint condition vinyl copy, and I got a super high resolution scan done of it. Not just copy of some image already somewhere. And was able to create these. And here we have all the credits as clear as can be. And when Johnny saw this and this cover, he was always completely hypnotized into ecstasy by this artwork and this cover. And so, first thing I did was which was in the main display, I made up a 24 by 48 of the whole cover. And I sent that to him, and he was literally stunned. And that was really so much joy in me, because I've always tried to provide whatever I've gotten involved with in terms of creating a product to have it be really high quality. And he totally, 100% just said, you always deliver the goods. And so, and so here's another picture Bob took at Ebbets Field. And this is the Tommy Bolin Band, May 13th, 1976. And how close was Bob? Pretty close. Here's another one from that same show. And in the original slide, you really couldn't see Norma at all. And across here was super dark. And so quite a few hours were spent in the Lightroom trying to bring Norma out and equalize the lighting on Tommy. And Tommy was good friends with Bob. So at the moment he took this picture, Tommy was looking at Bob. And he knew Bob. So in that instant, right there, so we call it Tommy Bolin looking right at you. Well, we're in the museum, so we can't control the background noise, and neither can the parents of the child. So this was taken on August 29th, 1976, when Tommy did the Mile High Stadium show, and this was Johnny's first gig as his drummer. And of course, so many people in Denver who were music fans back then, Tommy fans, whenever we do posts of the show on Facebook, so many people come in and go, I was there, I was there. And the backstory on this is that they did a number of pictures, and of course, they're smiling, and then Tommy said, I want to do one where I'm frowning. And I think that was just to torture Johnny, because he's his older brother. And so that's what that picture is. Then this month, right about now, is when Private Eyes came out in 1976. And I had bought the super high fidelity version that had come out a couple of years ago on vinyl. And they completely replicated, they just used the original artwork. And so I did a super high resolution scan of that, because it was completely mint, and the detail here and the vivid nature of it, and canvas art print, is pretty good. And then here is the inner sleeve of the same album, with, of course, wearing the airbrushed t-shirt that Prairie Prince had made for him. And the story with Prairie Prince is that when Zephyr first played in Phoenix in 1969, an opening act called the Red, White, and Blues Band opened for him. And by golly, who was the drummer in that band? A very young Prairie Prince. So obviously that band was pretty good. And so the band and Prairie had arranged for a flatbed truck to be set up out in the desert. And so after the show, they went out into the desert at night and had this long jam session that was obviously inspired in various ways. And so Tommy went on from there and everything, and then Prairie moved to San Francisco and soon got established there and became the Tubes' original drummer. One of the most amazing art rock, conceptual, tour de force bands in San Francisco history. And Lee Kiefer helped the Tubes put their albums together. And so when Tommy started doing Teaser, and Lee Kiefer was doing it with him, and I'm sure it just came up, you know, the Tubes and the San Francisco, this and that. And then Tommy thought, can you get a hold of Prairie Prince? Because guess who never forgot that night in the desert in Phoenix in 1969? Tommy. And so that's how Prairie got brought in to play on the Teaser album. And then he got all inspired to create that airbrush t-shirt for Tommy, which is in storage here at the museum. It was, of course, in the exhibit. One last picture. And this is from November 16th, 1976 in Denver. The Tommy Bolin Band opened for Blue Oyster Cult. And this picture was never really published before. It was kind of dark and dim in the slide. And we worked to get it to work as a good representation of that particular show that night. And of course, by then, Mark Cranny had taken over the drum chair. And it's not a secret that Johnny was a really excellent rock and roll drummer, but he wasn't really a jazz drummer. And Tommy, of course, was Roy Cobham and Mel. And Norma, she she was the one who was like, wanted to have somebody with more jazz chops. And so that was when Tommy went to Johnny and said, "We're going to make a change." But he was as clear as a bell with Johnny. But I will take care of it, don't worry. And of course, he would. In terms of networking, other bands, everything possible, Johnny was going to be fine. And so that's when Mark came in, and then he was advanced technique, and it helped Norma to be more inspired. She was used to playing in the Mahavishnu Orchestra and Frank Zappa, and so she just wanted to have a little bit more of that jazz improv vibe, and so that's why all that transpired. But Tommy, the bond between the two of them, it wasn't like throwing them off the bus. No, he was going to take care of it. And so that's what that picture is. So it's still up, it's still here, this portion of what was created because Johnny was all over this, and it meant everything to him. And I came to town and he said, "I want to take you over to the museum." So we're just driving around. We did that video in front of the house they lived in on 6th. And then he's like, "I want to go to the museum." I never had one thought that we weren't going to. I wasn't driving, somebody else was. But that was how much this meant to him. And he wanted my input. He wanted my feedback. And so that second time he said, "Are we going to the museum?" There was a little edge there. And I was like, "Johnny, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't want to go to the museum." "No, let's go." So we came over, and all that happened. And then when I came back in late July, I came to town because I knew also his health was not good, and I was trying to help support that process of seeing if we could figure out what was going on. And so we then came over here on July 30th, and that's when I did the video, walking video with Johnny, helping me be a tour guide through the